People who used to not believe in ghosts but do now. What experience changed your mind? Worked at a public pool. I would work alone after hours cleaning the building and the pool. One night around 2 AM I'm cleaning the change rooms. The pool has been closed for 4 hours at this time. I hear the sound of a child's laughter and bare feet running across the pool deck. I go out and scan the area. There's nobody in sight. The doors are all closed and locked. There is nowhere a kid could be hiding. No wet footprints on the pool deck. I recheck the doors and the security monitors. I am the only person in the building. It was unsettling. My girlfriend's grandfather's ashes were on a little shelf in the living room, right next to a very solid heavy angel statue. Well, one weekend she and I are fooling around on the living room couch, and out of the corner of my eye, I see the angel statue fly off the wall, accompanied with a deep grunt. Now when I say this thing flew off the wall, I'm talking 7-8 feet of air before landing on the hardwood and leaving a dent where the wing hit. Even if this thing had fell off the wall, it would have dropped straight down, not soared with force. Well, we both stood there in shock, and I whispered if she had heard the grunt as well, to which she agreed. So we both booked it for the day. Well, that night at dinner we told her parents what happened, leaving out the naughty bit. And Megan's younger sister burst into tears saying she had seen a dark figure at the foot of her bed the last couple's nights but didn't want anyone to think she was crazy. Grandfather that died had mental health issues that caused a lot of pain. Welp, after that day I was a believer. Grandpa's ghost cock blocked you. When I was about 10-14 I had terrible insomnia. I would imagine things and felt incredibly unsafe, as though I was being watched, although I never admitted this to anyone. I began only sleeping on the couch, with my back against the wall, and had to have the TV or some sort of light on. I missed an immense amount of school because of this, so my mom had me see a neurologist. The neurologist diagnosed me with some things, but the crazy part was during my sleep study I slept amazingly well. No issues at all, and slept in the real bed. Eventually I got transferred to a children's hospital, and speaking to the doctor I explained I would see things and felt uncomfortable. They had thought I was experiencing sleep paralysis. When they told my mom, she went ghost white. She pulled me aside and explained she was experiencing things too. She described in detail what I was seeing. That evening she approached my brother and asked broad questions. Do you have anything weird happen at home, etc. He also described what we experienced. It was then I realized we must have paranormal activity, and I've believed it ever since. When we moved out of that house all my sleep issues abruptly stopped, and I haven't experienced it since. My wife and I swear that our daughter used to talk to ghosts when she was a toddler. She was an only child at the time. First instance I remember was her telling me that she was talking to Nana. That's what I called my grandmother, who passed about 15 years before my daughter was born. My daughter was young, and so I hadn't even talked about Nana to her. So I showed her a picture and asked who she spoke to. There were 4 women, 3 of which I didn't even know, but without hesitation she pointed to my Nana. Okay, no biggie. Some months later, my wife and I are trying for baby number 2. After my wife gets pregnant, my daughter is sitting next to her on the couch and puts her head on her belly and says, "Mommy, there's a baby in there." Okay, maybe that's coincidence. She overheard us saying something. A few weeks later, my wife miscarries. Maybe my daughter picked up on our sadness. Who knows? But she again puts her head on her stomach and says, "Mommy, there's no baby in there anymore." Then, several months and one more, very early, miscarriage later, my daughter tells us, "I was talking to my brother last night and he said that my sister is coming to live with me soon." Again, she's an only child and had no living brother. We were still trying at this point, but had not taken any tests. We picked one up that night, and sure enough, pregnant. When time came to reveal the gender, I wasn't even interested. My daughter had already said it was a girl. Sure enough, I have 2 daughters. When I was in my late 20s I was dating my girlfriend, soon to be wife. We had been together for a while. One summer, the 3rd of July, her sister was abducted and killed by a group of 6 men. All the men were eventually caught and tried. The trials and the aftermath for the family were devastating and debilitating for them for many, many years. Fast forward 3 months. After the funeral, I arrived at my girlfriend's house to wait for her to get off from her job as a nurse at a local hospital. Neither of her parents were home, just me, alone in the house. So I went into the family room, turned on the TV, sat down in the couch, got comfortable and began to watch. Clear as a bell I heard my girlfriend's sister's voice in my right ear, just off my shoulder, call my name. I turned to look at the seat next to me and of course there was nobody there. I stared at the spot in the couch next to me for a long while. Feeling a bit uneasy, I turned off the TV and went outside to wait on the porch. In all the terribleness of that situation, there is an ounce of comfort in knowing that she got to go home again. I was always on the fence about ghosts because there was no scientific evidence of them being real and I was going through a big question phase with religion afterlife at the time anyway. But my family moved into an old farmhouse when I was 12. This was a very old farmhouse with a build date around the Civil War. The original owner's name was still on the old barn out back and we found numerous old antiques built into the walls when we completely renovated the place. A few odd and end things happened after we first moved in, but distinct things started happening to myself after I turned 16, but never to my sister until after she turned 16 too. The most prominent memory I have. The upstairs consisted of 2 bedrooms. One bedroom was the room at the top of the stairs. The second bedroom was in a separate room just to the left of the top of the stairs. I had the private room and my sister's room was the landing. When someone walked up the stairs it was very distinct. You could hear each individual step and the creaks got louder as the person approaching got closer. So one night I am sitting on my bed watching TV or something and I hear my sister come up the steps and go lay on her bed, so I start talking to her. When she doesn't answer me I get annoyed and go into her room to figure out what her problem is. Only she is not in there. My mind was blown because I know I heard her. I call for her and she had been downstairs the entire time. We never felt threatened, but it did seem that this entity liked picking only on women. Even my mother, who absolutely doesn't believe in ghosts, had to admit some odd things had happened. I think the funniest thing was having my ponytail pulled while I was doing the dishes. I don't know why it was so funny. It just cracked me up that whatever it was felt like playing with my hair. I'm still not sure if I believe, but there have been some weird things in my life that I can't explain. When I was 5 years old, I woke up in the night and my grandma was standing at the end of my bed, wearing a teal blue skirt and a matching blouse. I remember that it was summer and the sky was still light but not light enough for me to read, so I guess it was about 9 p.m. I sat up, she put her finger to her lips and I rubbed my eyes a couple of times, 'cause sleepy, and when I looked back she had gone. I just snuggled back under my covers thinking how nice it was to see her because I hadn't seen her for ages and I hoped she would still be there when I woke up. Next morning, my house was eerily quiet. My mum was in a worse mood than normal, but she had been crying, so I asked her what was wrong. My grandma died the night before. She had been crossing a road after her bingo turned out, at 8:30 p.m., about 60 miles away from where we lived. She had a massive brain hemorrhage in the middle of the road and didn't even make it to the other side, let alone to my house 60 miles away. She was wearing a teal blue skirt and matching blouse. Most of my family is extremely religious and believe in ghosts wholeheartedly. Most of them claim to have seen something paranormal at some point in their lives. I wasn't very religious, and I always thought to myself, if I haven't seen it, then it's not real. That changed during my senior year in HS. I was dog sitting at my great aunt's house while she was out of town for a few days. A little after midnight, I'm watching a movie and my aunt's dog starts barking like crazy and runs up the stairs at full speed. The dog was small, but fierce. Suddenly, I clear as day heard a gravelly voice at the top of the stairs say, "Bad doggy." The voice was deep and masculine. I went upstairs because I was certain nobody else was supposed to be there. I looked around and there was nobody in sight. The dog was still barking at something that I couldn't see. She was just barking at an empty hallway. That's when I heard footsteps walking away from us down the hall and into my aunt's bedroom. I could hear the footsteps, but I couldn't see anybody making them. I noped the out of that house with the dog and went outside in my car. The dog and I slept there for the night. I'm not entirely sure WTF I experienced that night, but I definitely believe in the paranormal now. I never told my aunt about what happened, but apparently my great uncle, her husband, had died in that house a few months after I was born. I never knew him, but I'm willing to bet that it was him who I heard that night.